Here we are, everyone. We are back with another episode of your favorite podcast, Woodworking is Bullshit. I'm your host, Paul Jasper, scientist by day, woodworker by night, and we have two co-hosts in the chair tonight. We have, of course, Eric Curtis, fine furniture and content creator.
What?
And second of all, we have our returning friend, as always, Jack Thomas, art professor, printmaker, learning designer, and the sexiest voice this side of the Mississippi River.
The Jack Attack is back,
hey guys,
Mac.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, Jack. That voice.
I'll be releasing my first ASMR album soon.
Oh.
Actually, that's not true. I won't.
Don't threaten the people with a good time.
We introduced you as art professor, printmaker, learning designer, but I feel like it should be voice model.
Ooh, I like that.
Voice model.
Right?
Interesting. Not voice actor.
Ooh.
Voice actor, voice model. So today's show, as you're going to find out, is about the balance. We had trouble coming up with a question to pose this as a question, but it's really about the balance between theory, thinking about the thing or thinking how to do the thing, versus practice, doing the thing. And this was Jack's idea. She sent us a message and said, "Hey guys, XXYYZZ." So I'm going to let Jack introduce this topic today.
Okay, so here's the frame of mind that I was in when I asked you guys that. I have spent all winter, all fall and winter and early spring just planning this delicious farmstead garden, this amazing chicken coop, this great greenhouse, just theorizing the fuck out of all the amazing things I could possibly do as a homesteader. Spring has finally come to the far reaches of northern Vermont. No more freezing days, finally. I go outside, I stick a shovel in the ground, and the first thing I do is hit fucking rock. Solid ass rock.
Fucking brutal,
You
dog.
guys.
Did you
Months
have
of
it all mapped
theorizing.
out? Like what
I
was
did. Oh,
yeah?
dude.
You're like,
dude.
this is gonna go here, this is gonna go there.
Look, I'm married to an architect. You know I got it mapped
Okay,
out.
all
You know I
right,
got it mapped out.
fair.
I had everything planned, and the material realities of the world were just like, well, you can go fuck yourself. And so, as I was, crying in the shower, mostly kidding, and washing the dirt off myself, I had this shower thought. You know the acronym like FAFO, like fuck around and find out.
Sure.
I was like, okay, that means one thing, but this is something different. And I was like, oh, Fuffy, fuck up and fix it. Fuffy.
I
yes. And so now I'm in the middle of making this like pivot because my ideas about what I thought I was going to do got completely smashed by the material world and material reality. Yeah.
I really want to have a visual representation of Fuffy because this feels like yet another t-shirt. Like there has to be some.
Oh,
Oh my God, you're
Fuffy.
so
There
right.
has to be like a tiny dog that's just
Yes.
Fuffy.
Yes.
You know? That's not half bad.
That's fluffy, Eric.
I know it has to be like in order for it to be a dog, it has to be FUFFI, and
Totally.
I don't know how to flesh it out.
We can noodle on that later, but yeah, you're totally right. It's got to be a t-shirt.
So Jack, your story is really about like you had thought for so long the theory of what you wanted that yard to look like in your vegetable garden, and you had it all beautifully planned out. And then the minute you actually turned to execution, the world had other ideas for you, right?
Yeah.
So this brought up the sort of the tension or the balance between theory and practice, and this is, I think, this applies to everyone about almost everything as I was thinking about this in advance. And so as I was kind of like getting my head together about this, the balance of the two and one versus the other and which is more important and do we tend towards one? Do we tend towards the other? Which one's more powerful in terms of like an artist? I came across a quote that I thought was really funny. And it says, in theory, there is no difference between theory and practice. but in practice, there is. And
Oh
that
my
to me,
God.
That's pretty good.
That is
Right?
so good.
So that was spoken by Benjamin Brewster in the Yale Literary Magazine in 1881. I love it.
Mm.
I totally expected that to be like a digital age thing because I feel like living in the digital age has made us so like sluts for theory, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a t-shirt too.
That was
Slut
my
for
favorite
theory.
Sluts
punk
for
band in the
theory.
90s. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a slut for
Absolutely.
That
theory.
was,
I'm-
I would
I
believe
am
that was
too.
Courtney Love's second band, Sluts
Oh
for
yeah,
Theory.
sluts for theory.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and I am, and I'm that person. Okay, so like listening to past episodes, like the episode on perfectionism, like really hit me, and I was just like, oh damn, it's actually very comfortable and very safe and cozy to just stay in your little world of theory because
Mhm.
when you're in the world of theory, nothing fucks up. But as
Mm.
soon as you move to
That's right.
practice, things start to fall apart sometimes.
But I
You're
mean, it's
vulnerable.
every time.
Yeah.
There's no sometimes about
Yeah,
it.
you're right. It's every time.
Anytime you meet material reality, there are forces that you didn't account for, and that's part of the interest of doing the thing. But it's interesting to hear you say that you think that kind of the digital age has made us sluts for theory. Personally, I'm a slut for a roast chicken, but that's just me.
You can be
the
both.
the the idea that we prefer theory, I think, is not surprising. But I think we live in a time now, which is different from any other time in human history, where you can build your own reality that is based around your theory because of the digital age we live in. So like you can construct a world, right? Just whatever, Minecraft, fucking Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is. You can come up with an ideal and then build a world around that ideal rather than the other way around, where you have an idea and you're trying to create it in this world that is imperfect. And that's an interesting kind of
What? Eric? I didn't follow that at all. I'm sorry. Say that again.
how do I phrase that differently? So I'm thinking about like the Shaper origin, right? I've been using the origin for a number of years. It's a great tool. If I tell it to do X, and now it has something called the bench pilot, which isn't out yet, but probably will be by the time this episode comes out. Now it's effectively a CNC, and you use the CNC all the time, Paul. You know all about
Correct.
that world.
Yes.
If you tell it to do X, it will do X. There's no variability.
Correct.
The second I take it off bench pilot and I use it with my own two hands, then I'm imparting randomness to it.
Sure.
And so I think people living and working in digital fields have the capacity to build a world around their theory so that their theory never has to meet reality in a way that we've never had before.
Oh, so you're saying the digital world that could be constructed around a theory is also kind of fake, but it matches the theory?
Fake.
Well, there's no
It's
friction.
fake, and they build it to match the theory so that they never have to come out of their comfy little cocoon of theoretical.
And where the rubber really meets the road in the real world, like making things actually, like producing actual items that humans will use as opposed to like these little digital.
The second you take the thing out of a CAD drawing and actually try to get a manufacturer to create it, even if it's like a fully malleable product, like it's made out of plastic or something, there are still limitations to that there aren't in a world of theory.
I see. So Eric, what your comment makes me think of is like there's a continuum and there's a limit on each end. So let's think of two diametrically opposed poles, right? On the one pole, you have the theory behind something, like the book learning, the academic, what all of the theoretical underpinnings of something, right? And you can read about it and you can discuss it. And Jack, you did a great job talking how it's all like pie in the sky theory and all this thinking, right? It's thinking is what it is. And then there's the other part, which is the doing, like sort of the other end of the spectrum. I'm a practitioner. I know how to get shit done. I know what goes wrong. I can make the real world item. And so that sets up the two poles of the continuum. And I think we all know that all of us exist somewhere in that continuum. Each of us has had a different amount of theory and a different amount of practical wisdom. So I guess I'd first like the three of us to identify where on that continuum we think we are. So
Oof.
Jack, why
Woof.
don't you put yourself, where on that continuum are you? And I suppose the answer changes depending on what we're talking about, but
Totally.
please.
I was gonna ask, what's the application of it?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
where do we fall in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I would say so for instance in the context of woodworking, slut for theory all day. Like I love to try to make things, but I've read hundreds of pages probably about different types of wood joints. Can I actually
Mm,
make those the way that you guys can?
Mm,
Abso-fucking-lutely not. No, I would love
mm.
that, but I haven't fucked around and fixed it. Fucked up,
Fuffy,
fuck. I haven't fucked
Fuffy.
up
haven't
and fixed
puppied
it
it.
yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I think that part of this is actually the academic problem, right? Because in the world of digital veneer, right, and in the world of academic theory, you're actually not allowed to fuck up. Like you're not allowed to have
Mm,
imperfection unless you frame it as like a, oh, look at me, I'm so imperfect, I totally, like that's the
Mm.
vibe, right? At least from
okay.
my perspective as a non-internet creator. So I'm a huge slut for theory when it comes to things that I theoretically I idolize and theoretically love but have not put
Mm,
into practice. But if you put me over like in front of a printmaking press, instantly I am all about practice because
wow.
the theory is so embedded already and it's had
Mm.
practice layered on top of it,
Oh.
that it's like natural. It's like you don't think about how you eat with a spoon when you pick up a spoon, like you just do it.
Hmm.
How about you guys?
Go ahead, Paul.
Uh, okay, so I'll say you gave two different fields, Jack. You gave woodworking and printmaking, and contrasted the two. How like you were at a different place on the continuum for both. So I will say I'm a proponent of balance between practice and theory, and that came from my academic experience as a scientist. So I have a PhD, right? A doctor of philosophy.
Mm,
In the name is theory, like theoretician, like philosopher, right? But and so you think, okay, these, in history, a PhD meant you were a theoretician and an excellent one, a terminal degree. You went as far as you could go.
I mean, it meant you
But
studied theology, right? So you were philosophizing about the existence of God.
right. So, but funny enough, Eric, you go into grad school, and I thought, well, what happens? Like you're in a PhD program, and you're thinking it's all about theory, and what happens? Well, in your second year and I was there for it takes about 6-7 years to get a PhD in the biosciences. In your second year, you have to identify a laboratory that you can fucking do some work, figure it out. And for year 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you are working like a motherfucking dog at the bench, putting all that theory you learned in year 1, but also you continue to learn. Like you learn the theory through year 2, 3, and 4 usually. By year 4, you're pretty much all work. But year 1, 2, and 3 is a ton of theory, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is a ton of practice. And so
mm,
it's very practical these days. Yes, I have a PhD, and yes, I know the theoretical underpinnings of what I'm doing, but it was married to a huge piece of actually doing the thing because one informs the other, and round we go. You have a theory, you form a hypothesis about something, you come up with a way to test it. If you can't test it, what the fuck good are you? You have to create an experiment, get your ass in the lab, make the rubber hit the road, right? Test that shit. And when you get the data, you have to analyze the data, draw conclusions, and come back to interpretation, which again relies on the underlying theory. Because if you don't have the underlying theory, you get a whole bunch of data and you don't know what the fuck it means. So the two go round and round in this beautiful harmony as part of your graduate training. And so that's where I'm coming from with this question. Like I thought, oh my God, like we have to balance the two. But Jack, you were sorry. And we're going to come to Jack because we have to ask Eric where. So I fall smack in the middle from my experience. And Jack, what we're going to talk about after Eric's answer is like what happens when one dominates the other. Like I think that's a really useful exercise. Like when you're too theory based or you're too practice based, what are the risks? But Eric, where are you on the spectrum?
Well, Paul, I just want to say real quick that I view you, I'm not saying you're not balanced. I do think you are pretty balanced. You're pretty close to 50-50. But I think that you, or at least the way that I view you, is you have a slight upper hand on the theory side. And I wonder if that's because the way you just described, for lack of a different way to phrase it, the scientific process is it begins with a theory and the work stems out of the theory.
It does.
And then the job of the work is to prove the theory or disprove the theory. Right. So the work, by the natural kind of order of operations, plays secondhand to the theory.
I would say that's true.
Okay. All right. So we're on the same page.
At least in science, like you have to ask yourself, what's the question? What am I trying to solve here?
I think you do the same thing in woodworking, right? Like you start with a design. What do I want to build? You start with an idea, you sketch on your iPad all the time, and then you put it into practice in the shop.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember a time where you've ever gone in the shop and just gone, what the fuck am I making today?
Yeah, it totally. Totally.
I have a question about that after we hear Eric's answer.
Oh, okay.
So Eric, where are you in the spectrum? I feel like you're a different place than say me or Jack.
I think that I am. And I think it stems out of kind of a deep insecurity when I was younger that I wasn't good at the thing. I've said many a times that like my hands know how to do things when my mind isn't working. Right. So whatever it is.
Wait. Say that again. That's so good. Say that again.
My hands know how to do things when my mind isn't working properly.
I love that.
That's amazing.
It's like to give an example. I have played piano most of my life. And when I was in college and I was taking piano lessons, I would just go into the lesson every week and I would just play the thing. And I would look at my hands because it's the natural thing for me to do. It's not for everybody. A lot of people can sight read music. Was never great at sight reading music. I can read music. I'll memorize it. And then I just watch my hands and my hands know the order of operations. And that particular teacher at that particular moment was like, I've been teaching piano for like 30 something years. I've never seen anybody do that. I was like, I don't think it's unique and I don't think it's special. It's just that the way that my mind works is my hands remember the thing. And I know at this point in life that I can just trust my hands to do the thing. And I need an occasional cue of like, okay, this is the next section. And then I'm good for the next 2 to 3 pages. And I'm just riding. Similarly in woodworking, I have learned over time that if I know roughly where I'm going, the best results always come from me kind of kicking in the door and just like looking around the room and seeing what's there. Just like full chaos agent.
That is terrifying. Oh my God.
It's like I know I'm going in there. I don't know what's in there, but I know I'm going in there. So how do I get in there fast enough so that I can react to what the stimuli are at hand and make the best decision?
You're like the Kool-Aid man who like smashes
I fucking
down
am.
the wall.
100%.
Oh
I
my God.
smash through the cinder block wall and I look around and I'm like, all right, I can work with this. Yeah,
Eric,
this seems like it's okay.
Just hearing that stresses me out.
But I think that stems from, so you guys were both much better students than I was. And school was not and is not built for people like me. And I interpreted that early on as I'm not good at theory. And I think a lot of that is like, so specifically in my field, a lot of that is just teachers early on who were so the theory, the way of thinking, the way of learning, and therefore the way of teaching is so deeply ingrained in them that they can't think to see it from a different angle. So again, as a young person, I interpreted that as like, oh, I'm just not good at this.
Yeah, I can see that.
You might have just had crappy teachers. Like as a learning designer, I see that all the time,
Sure. And I think part of it is that, but I don't want to put anybody on blast, but like, I also didn't put in the effort, in fairness, because like uh, it was a perpetuating cycle, right? Like they said I wasn't good at it. I believed I wasn't good at it. So I didn't try. So therefore, if I didn't try, there was no proof that I wasn't good at it. Right.
But Eric, you also have a degree. You have a degree in theology, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Cause once I
like,
found something that I was interested in, then I could apply it and really contend with it.
so where do you fall on the spectrum then?
I think for me, if we're going to keep it to the woodworking field specifically, I need
Sure.
some theory. I need some guiding principles, but they're really more of like a general agreement of like, this is the rough road you take to get to a beautiful object. And from there, I individualize everything. And what that in practice means is like, I just blow through the fucking door and start looking around and seeing what I have to work with.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fuffy. Oh yeah, Fuffy.
But it is that, right? And I think the most interesting objects in my portfolio have always come from I was doing a thing and it didn't work and I pivoted. And so it adds these layers of detail and interest that I could never have possibly theorized. Because if you did that in theory, you'd just be like, that's a stupid fucking road to take. Why would I do that? I'm just going to take the path of lesser resistance.
And I have to call myself out as a hypocrite here, because the number one thing that I tell all of my students, told them for like a decade now, is like, if you are acting like a perfectionist and you are trying to plan out every little thing and make it look the way it looks in your head, it's going to suck. Because once you get in there, like all the magic is dead. It's just going to be this exhausted, tired ass piece. If you try to plan out every brushstroke of your painting, or whatever, you can't do it. You have to leave room for the human element. People want to see the human element and the creativity. And I say that as a slut for theory.
Wow, Jack, calling yourself out, girl.
I know. I had to, man.
So, Eric, it sounds like you're more on the practical, a bit more on the practical side. Not that you don't have the theory as well, but you seem like more comfortable.
I don't shun theory, but I think theory has severe limitations. And at the risk of being a judgmental asshole, the people who piss me off the most in the world are the people who have all of the theory and none of the practice.
Oh,
yes.
And that includes everybody who's ever posted on Reddit. Full stop.
Oh, dude. Oh man, that you just lobbed a fucking grenade.
I don't know how many
Molotov cocktail.
I don't know how many Reddit listeners are listening to this, but sorry.
I just like listen, if you this is a gross oversimplification, but I'll hit it for the point of comedy.
Hit it.
If you have time to post shit on Reddit, you are not putting that time into actually doing the thing that you're talking about on Reddit, and therefore you're not practicing. So get the fuck out of here. I do not give a fuck about your opinion.
Man, I used to feel this way about all social media, in general. Like, oh my God, if I'm in there making a YouTube video or making an Instagram post, I'm concentrating on that and not doing the actual thing, right? So I think there's some gray area there, and I'm not just saying that so the denizens of Reddit don't come and murder us in our sleep. But yeah.
So Eric, what's so funny is that you focused in on people who are more theory and like armchair philosophizing fucking keyboard warriors telling you what's up and what's not, and that fucking goes up your ass sideways. And Jack, you in your original message to us sort of focused on that case study, right? Like that can you elaborate on that case study that you said in the message? It was about like what are you if you're just theory, right?
Yeah. So like here's my thing. There's a poem called "The Man in the Arena," and I cannot remember who wrote it, which makes me feel like a huge dick. But it's old. And basically the gist of that is like, there will be people who are sitting in the seats, watching a gladiator match or something, and they'll be booing and talking about how the gladiators are like, oh, they fucked that up, they did this wrong or whatever. And it's like the guy who's down there on the floor of the arena doing the thing, no matter whether or not that person is fucking up, they are in the position of superiority there, and of doing the thing. And so, like, I think I've told you guys before, I had this great sculpture professor who like really shot me down, one day, saying the ideas are not the work. You have to actually make the fucking work.
That's
because
such an important thing to
I
learn
love that. Can
and
we say that again?
internalize.
Yes.
The ideas are not the work. I love it.
it's
love
so
that.
important. Like, I honestly need to get that tattooed on myself as a slut for theory. I really do. Because you set yourself up for disappointment. If you have a thing in your mind, even if you have a thing on a CAD file, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be exactly the way it was in your brain, right? So you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And so for me, besides the ideas not being the work, if you have ideas and then you don't turn them into work, then you're not an artist. You're not a craftsperson. You're just an armchair philosopher who's either afraid of failure, or you don't actually prioritize the things that you claim to prioritize, in my humble but correct opinion.
You're worried about
my
me blowing
God.
up fucking Reddit, and you're out here just torching the world.
Man, I live in the middle of nowhere. People aren't going to find me.
Okay, I have two reactions. Jack, that is fucking fire. I love
It's
it.
savage. I'm sorry, it's savage. I know.
Jack, you
Don't
know I
apologize.
love your fucking savage nature. I just love it.
What
So
can I
have
say?
I have two thoughts that came up as you were saying that. Number one, there's been this adage that I've always remembered because it is so fucking true, especially, and I've experienced it firsthand a million times. I swear, it is easier to criticize than to create.
Oh, so true.
That little phrase has stayed with me the last 10 years because I am frequently the one throwing out ideas, trying to create something, make this, make that, make this. And I always felt like butthurt when I would be criticized. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm the one doing all the hard work here, trying to come up with something. It's so much easier to sit back in your little theoretical ass chair and fucking criticize someone's idea. Why aren't you coming up with the idea, motherfucker? Because it's hard. That's why. So I feel like that's a little bit, that came up when you talked about, the whole contrast of armchair philosophizing and Reddit, Eric, versus the doing. But the other thing I thought of is I've always thought of the balance of the two with a metaphor of a Ferrari. So I always thought like,
Not the most balanced car, but go on. I'm curious to see where
I'm
you go
very
with this.
intrigued.
okay, so I really I've thought about it this way for a while. I feel like practice without theory is like having a Ferrari with no steering wheel. You can fucking rev that car. It'll go so fucking fast in a particular direction, but is it the right direction? You don't know where to go. You don't know how to steer it. Theory without practice is like a car with a steering wheel, but you don't know how to turn the engine on. It just sits there and it's thinking about all the wonderful places it's going to go, but it doesn't fucking go there. And really what you need is the marriage of the two, right? You want to have that Ferrari like acceleration, or for Conrad, Porsche like acceleration with a good steering wheel and a sense of where you're going. To me that metaphor has always like kind of stuck with me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel that.
I can't not think about the type of person who maybe it's not a Ferrari, maybe that's too above budget, but the type of person, it's like maybe because I slightly identify with the impulsive purchaser of like, you bought the expensive car but didn't think about how much it was going to cost to maintain. And that is like, that's a little bit practice versus theory of like, in theory, you really wanted to have a fucking Ferrari. In practice, you were like, but I already paid the money and now I don't have any more to keep the thing. I gotta maintain the thing.
I think the other like impulsive purchaser thing that's like practice versus theory thing is like, do either of y'all have ADHD? I definitely have ADHD.
I think I have undiagnosed ADHD, but
Okay.
I also feel like maybe that's a bias in 2025 that everybody thinks that.
I mean, if I can just throw it out there, I've talked to you for less than 24 non-consecutive hours, and I'm pretty sure you have ADHD. But anyway, I'm sorry. No, but look,
I love this. Keep going.
I mean, what I mean to say.
Oh my god, it's so amazing.
Eric, what I mean to say is game sees game. Game sees game.
Game sees game.
Jack, that was a heroic save.
I'm just saying. But so this is a thing that famously or infamously people with ADHD do. You get hyper fixated on something that you're so fucking sure you're obsessed with.
Yep.
You're like, this is part of my personality now. I'm gonna own this. I'm gonna master this. I'm gonna crush it. You go out and you buy all the stuff. A bunch of what the fuck, Paul?
That's so funny that
he's loving the fact that you just fucking put me fully on blast on the internet.
You called his shit out in like the most epic fashion ever.
He is so aroused right now.
I am.
Oh my god, should I narrate this?
Dude, Fuffy, okay?
Fuffy. But like, so you buy the things, or maybe it's even not like a hobby. Maybe it's even a problem that you have. Like, if you're like, oh my god, I have terrible back pain or something like that, and you go and buy like one of these acupressure mats or something, and then you use it once, and then you never use it again, right? Because in theory, it was going to solve all your problems. In theory, you were going to be the world's most amazing oil painter, or whatever. And then you sit down to actually do it and you fucking hate it. You hate the process.
The work is hard.
The work is hard. Exactly. Or even if it's not about being hard, it's like, wow, I just genuinely don't enjoy this. Even if you're good at it, even if it's not hard, you're just like, this just doesn't gel with me on the day to day,
So I've like kind of a summarizing reflection, and I'd like to turn this towards craft now. Like we've talked about the concept of theory versus practice, right? And I'd like to turn it towards like making and woodworking and how does, right? But before, I guess sort of what I take away from this and thinking about this before the show and listening to what both of you said is I almost feel like the theory is like a higher level abstracted learning of the thing. It's like as you reflect on a field, it's the theory, like the underlying principles or the overarching principles, right? The theory is the big umbrella under which all things fall in essence. But when you actually do the thing, it's one specific case that may or may not be under that umbrella. In theory, most cases are under that umbrella. But we know that theory doesn't always cover us. Like we find ourselves in a spot where that didn't go the way I thought, right? And you're like, yeah, because that's the doing the real thing. There were variables you didn't account for in that sort of overarching theory. So you sort of narrow your focus down to the doing of that one thing, and it's very different than this umbrella 10,000-foot view of theory. It's almost like different zoom, right? Like different zoom. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, well, I think we develop these theories where like the umbrella is a useful analogy because, the rain comes down and the umbrella keeps this circle clear of rain. Mm-hmm. And then we think there's an umbrella next to it. And that's fine. That's doing its job, but that's a different theory. And every now and again, we have the capacity to understand a basic Venn diagram that those two umbrellas overlap
Good
slightly.
point.
But in reality, what's happening is every fucking umbrella on the goddamn planet is overlapping every other umbrella to some small degree. Mm-hmm. And so you have this thing and you're thinking you're in the midst of this object, in the midst of this process, and you think it falls under X theory. And then as you start doing the thing, you realize that it's kind of X theory, but it's also a little bit of Y theory and a little bit of Z theory and also a little bit of Q theory. And like M theory is definitely not there. And so then it becomes a full mind fuck because no theory actually fully applies to what you're doing.
It's so true. So, nothing is isolated. And I see this, like, Eric, I'm so struck by your story about feeling like you weren't good at something because a teacher told you that you weren't. And like, as a learning designer and, and as a former college professor, I see that so much in education, and it really fucking hurts me because there are so many kids who would be like so good at things if they were just, taught the right way. There are a lot of great teachers out there. There are also a lot of shitty teachers out there. And there are, I'm not going to pretend to remember this guy's name. There's some guy who has some like hierarchy of skill that's like some theory, right? But basically the gist is this. There are 4 stages of mastery. The first stage of mastery is just theory. It's where you learn about a thing and you can like remember it and kind of regurgitate it. The second stage of mastery is where you can explain that thing to someone else
Hmm.
well enough that they might kind of be able to like muddle their way through it, but maybe not.
Hmm.
The third stage of mastery is where you can do the thing. You can actually do the thing. But if something gets fucked up, you're totally screwed. The final stage of mastery is fuffy.
Fuffy.
It is. It's where you have gained such expertise in this thing that you can do it. Not only can you do it, but you can adapt when something goes wrong, and you can adapt
Wow.
other theories and principles into the ecosystem of that one thing so that you can address every possible scenario. And it might not turn out perfectly, but you can address it. You can fuffy.
Wow. Jack, that is an incredible framework. And Eric, let me butter your buns for a second by saying you are definitely like stage 4 in woodworking.
You are.
I have seen you adapt to all kinds of fucking shit.
Consider my buns buttered, buddy.
No, really. No, really. And I think both of us are. We're both at the stage that we can recover from a lot of different things.
For sure.
Right? Which is
For sure.
really Jack, that's a great framework for thinking
That is.
about it.
Can I say something? I agree with, and I agree with what you just said. I agree with the quote. One thing that I've been percolating on for the last 30 or so minutes is every time we've framed this progression of the marriage of theory and practice, theory always comes first.
Yeah.
Practice always comes second.
Right.
Chronologically.
Yeah.
But not necessarily hierarchically. But there are, and I think I fall into this camp, and this is why maybe I think I was a bad student. I can't, like, abstract theory is not helpful for me. I have to have some framework on which to put the plaster so that I can build an image and understand how it works. And so for me, practice comes first, and then you fuffy the shit out of it. And then you go, why didn't it work?
Yes.
And it's because then you start to learn pieces of the theory.
Then
and
you
put
want to learn the theory.
So,
right,
like, what
because
you're
you're driven to figure it out and figure out what you're doing wrong, but it only comes through the framework of practice.
What
Jack.
you're describing is project-based learning, and like only the best teachers do it. It's very rare.
So Jack,
Nobody did it in the 90s.
I know.
That was not a thing.
I was there. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Well, it's like this dichotomy. There's some people who are good at book learning and theory learning.
Sure.
Straight off the bat. I definitely fall in that camp, and so does my daughter. I watch the way she learns. She can go with a computer to a table and sit there for 4 straight hours and not look up. Like, she has that in her. Like, she's no doubt theory first. Like, that's easy. Getting her to practice it and actually do it is actually the harder part. Whereas I know plenty of people who are like, get me the fuck out of this chair, get me out of this computer, put something in my hands, then I will understand why I need to learn it. Like, I get what you're saying, like, deeply.
And not even for learning, but like sometimes people just like, some people prefer theory as a way of life, and some people prefer practice as a way of life. Like getting your hands on things. Some people love to be on computers and some people don't.
And Jack, you brought up the point, like, for so long, education, and I don't think we want to pivot into like our education system debate. But
I think we should steer clear of that.
No,
one
but like,
no.
No, but just to say, I think this is fairly obvious, and for so long, whether our education system is theory and bookish, and we haven't had enough focus on the trades, right? How many people go to trade school, the doing, right, versus the theory first, the college, right? College versus trade school. So I do think we've been programmed that like the theory is more valuable and higher level until your fucking furnace breaks, and then you're like, oh, where's your theory getting you now, right?
Not only where is your theory getting you, but also the affront, the like people, the offense they take at calling in a plumber and paying them $150 an hour. And they're like, how, why? All they're doing is fix. And I'm like, yeah, you go fix your fucking furnace.
Seriously.
What are you being paid to produce very little for society?
But yeah, so
sorry, I meant that as the white collar person. Let's say you have an investment job. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
What is your benefit?
The offense that they take, that the skill that they don't have, the knowledge that they don't know how to apply, then costs quote unquote real money.
Yeah.
Is like, because you were taught your whole life that because you are quote unquote smart, you're better than other people.
which is just
Yes.
such bullshit. There are different kinds of intelligence. And like, just for the record, my plumber is like the fourth most important man in my life. I have him on like
Number 4.
number 4. And he fucking knows it. And I will happily pay whatever his fee is. The man is an artist, right? I mean, like, and that's the thing. He's taken this trade to the nth degree of absolute mastery. And some guy who fucking works on Wall Street cannot help me when my boiler goes out in January and it's negative 25 degrees. Like,
Although,
yeah.
although I could hear some pushback from the crowd being like, "Yeah, but that person on Wall Street is going to tell you how to invest your 401k, which is going to earn you $100,000 over the next
I'm a
10
fucking
years."
millennial. I don't have a 401k.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck your 401k. Okay, you can stick that in your ass sideways.
Exactly.
Okay, what I want to say is like from an early time that I was a homeowner, like I met I've told you the story before, the 80-year-old guy across the street. Hal, he taught me how to sweat plumbing, like how to sweat copper, how to solder. He taught me how to wire circuits and about the gauge of the wire has to be married to the amperage and how to make sure it's grounded properly and the directionality of twisting your wires. And like he taught me all that, and it engendered in me, like I was in the ivory tower, right? 4 years of college, 7 years of graduate school, 4 years of postdoctoral work. Like I was in the ivory tower my whole life, right? So, but having that experience when I bought my first home gave me such a deep appreciation for how hard the trades are and working with your hands are. You are tired, you're exhausted, your fingers hurt from stripping wire and wrapping
Can
them
confirm.
around. And it's like it gives, like, I feel like, and now that I've been woodworking for 20 years, I feel, and doing my own electrical, doing my own plumbing, I sided my own house, I built my own porch, I built, the chicken coop. And I feel like having explored both worlds thoroughly, I would say, I have such an appreciation for both. So I know we can shit on one, we can shit on the other, and we can play both sides, and it's kind of fun. But I honestly I have appreciation for both sides, being able to speak from both sides.
I think to your point, like at the beginning, Paul, both like your side starts with the theory, goes into the practice to prove the theory. So it has both the theory and the practice. And we are conditioned to believe that people who just build things for a living don't have theory.
Yeah.
Go talk to any electrician. They know the code backwards and forwards.
Have to.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
legally have to.
They would never
any
pass the
carpenter
test. That's
knows how long a 2x12 can span. Like the theory, it's basic engineering.
It's baked into their degree.
Yes, they have to. They legally have to know these things so that they can do their job. So we see them as building shit, but what they are doing is they are taking the theoretical knowledge that they have because other people have laid out that information before them and they've memorized it so that they can apply their craft. That's not any different from what you're doing.
Eric, such a good point.
So true. Yeah.
So let's take this question and move it to woodworking, let's say. So in terms of woodworking, I want to apply this whole theory versus practice to woodworking. In the field of woodworking, or whatever, like whoever the listener is, whether you're a ceramicist or a painter or whatever kind of artist you are, what constitutes the theory and the thinking? And what constitutes the practice? I mean, I think it's fairly clear what constitutes the practice, right? Duh. But Eric, what constitutes the thinking or the theory part of woodworking to you?
I think that's a more complicated question than maybe you just gave it credit for, because there's so many parts, there's so many layers of theory. Like let's keep it specifically to woodworking. Like even looking around this room, looking at mortise and tenons, looking at sliding dovetails, looking at like what we would call the craft part, the practice part. It's only practice now because we know the theory behind it, and the doing it no longer requires thinking. Yes. But when you first do the thing, it's fully theory, right? Yeah. It's just an idea. It's this ethereal thing that you're trying to nail down in reality. So I don't know what that intersection is really. Well, if it just continues to move as you get better at your craft.
Go ahead, Jack.
My question is this, and this is the one I was going to ask before when Eric was giving his answer. As somebody who is not an amazing woodworker, production woodworker, any of that, my question is, do you feel like knowing how to execute individual elements of things like dovetails, etc., is that the equivalent of theory, like how to do something and why? And here's why I'm asking that question. I have an amazing cookbook. I have a lot of amazing cookbooks. Um, but my favorite one is called Baking at Home with the Culinary Institute of America. The reason it's my favorite is because it's not actually a recipe book. There are some recipes in it, but it's a practice book. It is a
Mm.
techniques book. And so instead of saying, here's the recipe for something, make it, but if you fuck it up, there's no explanation for why. The book gives you recipes, but it says, here's why you have to fold the egg white in first before the yolk.
Oh,
Mm.
You know,
the
and like as
theory.
yeah, and like as a,
That's
yeah, as an
that's
art
the weird thing,
professor,
right?
yeah, like, and as an art professor, I'm like, yes, like people have to have this. You can't just understand, like, and I'm wondering what the woodworking equivalent of that is. Like, does somebody who just like, and no shade to anybody who does this, because obviously I can't talk, but like if you download a woodworking plan for like a console table online, and you're like, I just want to build this console table, and you go and you start building this console table that someone else has designed, do you feel like that design circumvents the theory and they just get to get right to the practice? But then what happens when you fuck up?
No. I see. Even the cookbook that you just described, it is full of practical advice, right? Here's what you do. Here's the order of operations, and then it's also giving you the theory as to like why you need to do it in this order, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a good Venn diagram of information. And you read that book, and you know that information. And so if you read that book and you were about to go make one of the recipes in the thing, or do one of the things, one of the techniques in the book, and I said, do you know how to do it? And you would say, yeah, in theory.
That's exactly
Like
what I
it's
would say.
and so right. So the theory is just the thing you haven't yet put into practice. Like I can build,
Oh.
I am reasonably confident that 90% of things made out of wood you put in front of me, I could figure out how to build. Doesn't mean I could build it well, but I could figure out how to build.
Hmm.
The guitar behind me, I could figure out how to build a guitar. I know how to build a guitar in theory, but I haven't built one yet. So like this, it's this weird moving target of like, when you cut a dovetail, there's theory as to how to cut a dovetail, and that's the thing you teach somebody how to do. But once you know how to do it, it's no longer theory. And then you move on to a mortise and tenon. And now you know how to cut a mortise and tenon in theory until you do it. And that target
Mm.
keeps moving
All
weirdly.
right, so Eric, you're speaking to something that I thought prior to the episode. I at first thought, what it's as simple as this. I tried to simplify the discrimination between theory and practice. So my first thought was, well, the design is the theory and the building is the doing, the execution, right? And then I thought, that's not exactly accurate, because
Mm,
yes, the design is the theory, sure, like that part is fine, but in the practice, in actually doing the thing, there's micro theory that comes
mm-hmm,
into play. Like, why do you why do you use a dovetail? Why is the grain orientation the way it is? Like, we think about expansion contraction, that's a theoretical consideration, and we have to understand the underpinnings of it to figure out a way to allow the wood to move and expand and contract without breaking itself. So you'd say, well, why did you do mortise and tenon, or why did you do a half lap joint, or why did you do this, or why did you orient the grain like that when you did the thing? It's because I had the theory that went along with the thing. So there's like, and this is what you're saying, there's like micro periods of theory that
yeah,
underlie all of the operations we do, practically speaking, whether it's mortise and tenon or dovetail or grain direction or finish. Like, how do we decide what
sure.
finish to use? How do we decide what glue to use? Oh, I want the piece to be restorable 100 years from now, 200 years from now. That's a theory question. You're not good. You haven't lived 200 years and firsthand experience to the glue failure, like, or restoration. Like, it's a theoretical point, that you had to know during the execution. So it's like the theory actually is far more embedded than we want to, it's not like this black and white, design versus execution. It's far
So
more
when does
sprinkled.
it how does it shift, or does it shift from your perspective? Because I think it does slightly from mine. If the theory is something you learned out of a book, from a conversation, etc.,
Yeah.
versus something you learned in practice. Like you have firsthand experience, and maybe it was just exploratory.
Well-
like you built a chest, and 10 years later it blew the fuck up because you didn't understand about wood movement.
Okay.
I have
And now you understand wood movement, and so now you're going to apply. That's applied knowledge. That's not theory. You just go like, I know wood moves, so I'm going to build it in a way that I know is not going to blow up.
I'm so glad that you said that, because like I have this exact question. So several years ago, I had this like sick truck that I took camping everywhere, had like a rooftop tent and stuff. And I was like, I need to build, as a non-professional woodworker, I need to build like a 6 set of like decked camping drawers that go in the back of the truck, like 2 big drawers that are like the full bed length. There's like a platform on top. You guys, I shit you not when I said like the most advanced woodworking I'd done at that point was like carving a spoon, right? And I was like, you know what? I know how to do this. I'm gonna do this. I had no idea how to do this.
Buffy,
baby. Exactly. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look online about how to do this and this and this. I'm gonna make a SketchUp model of exactly every fucking dimension.
Yeah, you are.
Because
there's
nothing that a slut for theory with ADHD loves more than making a SketchUp model. And so I did, and then I made a cut list from the SketchUp model, and I found the wood and did all the cuts.
Ooh, I love this little southern twang you just pulled in there.
Sorry, it's the whiskey. It's the whiskey, man. Yeah.
Jack, put it on. Jack, lay it on thick. Come on, you can do it.
Y'all, look, I'm gonna be laying it on thick by the time we get done this episode right now. Just give me a minute. Whew, just give me a minute, y'all. All right. So anyway, all of this to say, at the time, I was married to a person I'm, no longer married to. And this person was not the kind of person who thought it was okay to go straight into practice. And even as a slut for theory, his level of sluttiness for theory was untouchable to me.
He was a hoe for theory.
He was a hoe for theory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was the fucking madam of the theory hoe house. I mean, and it will not surprise you to learn that he was like a doctor and a scientist, right? So anyway, I mean, doctors do plenty of practice, obviously.
Hey now, watch it.
Sorry. I'm sorry. You're different.
He's not a real doctor. It's fine.
Right, exactly. PhD, not MD. It's fine. So, I'm in our garage. I'm taking all these measurements. I'm starting to build this thing. And he was like, this is a bad idea. You have no idea what you're doing. Like, this is not going to end well. You should not do it. This is going to suck. Because his understanding was that I go into a project thinking that everything's going to turn out right. That's not the case. I go into a project thinking things probably aren't going to turn out right. But if they do, I'm fucking thrilled. Right? It's 2 completely different mindsets. So even though I'm a slut for theory, I'm like, I get the theory as much as I can, and then I go into it. But if I love the process, and this is the stickler part, if I love the process of what I'm doing, then it's totally fine to go into practice after only a little theory, because if it fucks up and it's not exactly what I'll fuffy it, and I'll enjoy every goddamn minute of it.
Yeah. See, Jack, I am exactly the same way. I think I'm slightly less slutty for theory than you are, but like only mildly. What I have found is the thing that it entices me about doing what I do, what we do, is I have to be intrigued by a question. What happens if X? And the only way to do that is if I have a rough theory, but it's not fully fleshed out. Because if I have a full theory, then I'm looking for X and Y happens, I'm frustrated. Why did Y happen? That was unexpected. That's stupid. If I go in and I go like, I'm aiming towards Z, and then I do X, and I go like, well, what happens if I do Y instead? Then it's a pleasant exploration, and it's like an exciting thing.
Totally.
The theory is great as a general principle as a guideline, as a leading question for me. But like when I flesh out things in CAD, I do it to the bare minimum because I know that I could continue to waste time in CAD and it's never going to look like the CAD model. This is why I don't send like fully fleshed out drawings to clients. I send things in charcoal and in Conti because they're
amazing.
like they're ideas. You know, it's going to be somewhere around here.
And if you lock yourself in, you give yourself no room, not only for mistakes, but also no room for evolution when something better than what you imagine might come up.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
this is gonna fucking hurt some feelings, but you know I don't mind hurting feelings.
Do
so
it.
I love it.
I'm just gonna throw this out. People who are sluts for theory, but to the exclusion of actually going into practice, are people who have
post on Reddit. Agreed.
Right. Are people? I just saw one outside my window. Oh my god. People who are sluts for theory to the exclusion of practice are people who have more anxiety than they have curiosity.
Wow.
And you only have that dedicated curiosity when you love something, when you love the process, you love the material. Like, I'm never gonna fuffy with like electrical wiring shit, danger aside, right? But I'm gonna fuffy all day long with woodworking because I love the way it feels. I love the way everything smells. I love the light, floating through sawdust. I love the sound of the saw. I love all of it, But electricity, fuck it. Like I don't give a shit about that, right? So your curiosity has to overcome your anxiety because curiosity is what will keep you, whole when your anxiety keeps you trapped in theory.
Wow. I love it, Jack.
Jack, that might be the most astute point that's been made on this podcast as a whole.
You're buttering my biscuit right now.
Can you give some practical advice, if you have any, to the people who feel that level of anxiety to put their theories into practice? Like, what would you tell them if you were just to encourage them, like sit down over a beer or over a coffee and encourage them to take risks and feel okay with that failure? What would you say?
Yeah, here's the question I think that folks like this have to ask themselves, and I can't take credit for this. A former therapist of mine asked me this question, and it shook me to the core. She said, whenever you feel like you're avoiding doing something, whenever you're trapped in theory, instead of like letting yourself move forward into practice, that avoidance, what does that behavior allow you to avoid? What feelings does that allow you to avoid? And any time that I'm having trouble starting something, working on something that's barely in progress, I ask myself, what is this behavior allowing me to avoid? And the answer is usually coming to terms with the fact that I'm not as good as I want to be yet. It's anxiety about being judged for being bad at something. But that just circles right back to this idea of like, we've become a society that's so about polish instead of practice,
Agreed 100%.
Yes, Jack.
Like everybody fucks up. And not only should we be allowed to fuck up, we need to celebrate fucking up. Because frankly, if you're a theory only person, it doesn't matter how many fucking books you read. And you guys can't see my bookshelf right now. I mean, I have hundreds of books, and I love all of them. But if you remain stuck in theory and you are not willing to fuffy, you are never going to be a master of the thing that you're a master of in your mind. It's not going to happen.
Oh my God, what an ending. Oh, Jack, I'm speechless.
She said, fuck out of here, Reddit.
That's a mic drop, Eric. That was a fucking mic drop. Jack, that was so well stated. That is amazing.
If I could drill that into like every person who's going into the trades, every person who's practicing a craft, every art student, if you learn that lesson, that's the keystone to every other lesson. But if you don't learn that lesson, you can go to infinity fucking years of art school or whatever, and it's not going to do you any good because you're always going to be playing it safe. You're going to be clinging to theory, playing it safe, and you're never going to get to that actual level of mastery where you can fuffy.
That's so good.
The only pushback I have on that is we live in a moment, and maybe this is not unique to our moment in time. I'm not sure. But we do live in a moment where there are economic incentives to not master a craft, because you can get paid a lot more money to be a critic of a thing,
Which I
or
hate.
to be professionally bad at a thing on the internet,
Oh
than
wow,
you
Eric.
Ooh,
can
what does that mean?
to be professionally bad at a thing.
Yeah, on the
Well,
internet.
so there are a number of people that I know who are successful on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, who are deeply afraid to advance in their craft because they're afraid of leaving their audience behind.
Oh, because they
Because
feel like
And
their
because
audience.
because
and
the sales funnel is broad at the
you're at
top.
the top of the funnel
Right,
where it's
right.
yeah,
and
exactly.
and so they feel, and I'm not trying to shit on anybody. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
number of them have expressed to me that they feel stuck in that genre of kind of novice to beginner, where they can't even get to intermediate because they're afraid that their audience isn't going to come along, so they can't progress because the economic incentives require them. Their business is built around not progressing.
Wow.
Eric, interesting
God.
counterpoint.
That's a dynamic I have never even remotely considered. Like in academia, it's like if you're not the best, you're nobody. Like
Sure,
if you're not at
sure.
the height, the practice, you're nobody,
Right.
and you're not allowed to fuck up visibly. You have to be, always perfect. But wow, I mean, that's even having built a lot of courses for people. That still is shocking to me that people
Yeah,
feel
well,
stuck that way.
and how many of those courses that you've built are aimed at the beginner to early intermediate?
Honestly, a good
Overwhelming
70%.
majority, right?
70%. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
true.
Eric, wow. Good point,
So
dude.
it's I don't remember who said the thing of like the hardest thing to do in the world is to convince a man that the thing that pays his bills is morally reprehensible, or something to that effect, right? Like, to convince somebody that what they're doing is wrong when their income depends upon it is
Yeah.
borderline impossible.
Ooh. Okay.
Man.
Good
Eric,
times, huh?
it's a killer point. I have one last question, and I'm going to ask it to Jack, because Jack, I'd be curious to see your first reaction to this with regards to selling and selling your art. How does practice versus theory play into selling? And I'll tell you why I thought about this, especially for you. I watched a documentary on Jeff Koons, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. It is
Hold
what it
back your
is.
feelings.
It is what it is, right? But my own opinion, as not being in the art world, I'm not like some contemporary art critic. I'm sure you're far more leagues and leagues and leagues far more into it and know these people and
I'm
whatever.
certainly critical.
Okay. So I watched the documentary on Jeff Koons, and I was trying to understand why he's so good at selling his shit. It sells for these astronomical. I mean, he's the highest priced selling artist in the world, I think, or roughly. And I was trying to dissect, like, what is it that he's doing that allows him to sell his work for these astronomical prices when I don't think the work itself is moving me or is new or innovative. And it was like I would listen to him explain a piece to a customer, let's say, and he would talk through the theory of it. Well, the Gazing Ball series, which was nothing more than all the masterful paintings you're all familiar with. Let's say the Mona Lisa, for example, because we all know that he would meticulously recreate the Mona Lisa, and he would put a gazing ball, which is like those shiny garden balls you see like driving around, like a
A
little
fucking disco ball.
right,
Basically.
like right, a shiny ball people put in their gardens, and he would put a gazing ball in front of it, and it would sell for like astronomical dollars. And I'm like, huh? And then he started explaining, well, you see, and he was so smooth about it. He's like, well, you see, the gazing ball gives it reflects the painting to the viewer in a way that they can interact with it and see themselves as part of the painting, thus integrating them into the fabric of the art that they're
I
seeing.
mean,
And
as
it,
soon as you
wait,
throw a
wait,
thus in the explanation,
Eric, you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he's basically theorizing about the intention of the work in a way that made the viewer feel important, feel cultured, feel smart.
That's what it is. He's
You
throwing
just
butter
nailed
in
it.
buns.
You just
yeah,
nailed it.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fine. But to me, that was theory. He was basically making them a part of the theory, and that became part of his selling phenomena. So, Jack, I'll turn it to you. You can react to all this. How do theory and practice, like, and the practice version of selling is like the object is so masterful, it sells itself. You don't even have to explain anything. A Windsor chair, it's so gorgeous, it just sells, right? Beautiful. So, what's your reaction to this with selling?
I just wish everybody who's listening right now could see see all the facial expressions I just made when you were talking about Jeff Koons. Like, I mean, I think that you really nail it there. I obviously have a deep, abiding hatred of Jeff Koons. I'll just leave with that. Um, he's doing something that, like you said, makes people feel important. It makes people feel like they understand. And the art world gets a rap, a legitimate rap, for being this like exclusive world of smoke and mirrors and veils that the common man can't possibly enter, right? Jeff Koons is making things that feel incredibly approachable to people, and they're also relying on the language of like modern consumerist pop culture. Smooth things, shiny things, balloony things, round things. It's a spectacle. His work is a spectacle. But even before it was a spectacle, if you rewind in time and look at this series he did that was like a knockoff of the Hummel figurines,
Mm.
you know, like those kitschy little objects, it's things that are inherent to pop culture that already have cultural value that he layers his own notoriety value on top of so it can sell for big, big bucks to people who have millions and millions of dollars. I mean, to me, he and Damien Hirst are in the same, in
Mm-hmm.
the same kind of thing. And to anybody out there who's thinking that I might have a chip on my shoulder, like, no. I mean, would I love to be rich from making art? Maybe, sure. Having more money could be nice, but not at the expense of making things like that. And Jeff Koons doesn't actually make most of his own work. He has a massive production team that he
That's
pays.
the thing most people don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Most
Jack,
those guys aren't making their own
No,
work.
no.
So, Jack, can you layer though onto your review of like selling art this
Mhm.
idea of theory versus practice and mastery?
Yeah, I think it depends. So, and I wish this gets like right back into that art versus craft discussion that that melded our hearts together, right? Like, if you're selling something based on theory, then you're most likely not selling it to the beautiful, wonderful majority lay people of the world, right? You're selling it to the ivory tower. When you sell theory, you are usually selling it to the ivory tower. When you sell practice, you are selling it to the people who actually really matter, to the common people. And yeah, I said it. People who actually really matter. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Look. We can get to a whole class war discussion later, right? But like, if you have to explain the art to someone, and I'm guilty, you guys.
Sure, I think we all are. There's
Yeah.
no way that we can do what we do and not.
Yeah.
The explanation increases its value.
Absolutely. And I have a 26-page master's thesis, that's full of theory. But what matters is the practice, period. Because again, I'll say it again, somebody can stab me through the internet if they want. But if you have ideas and you are not actually making the work, then the ideas don't matter and you're just an armchair philosopher. You're not an artist or a craftsperson.
But so let's stick with Jeff Koons as the example. He is maybe by definition a theoretician at this point because he's not like he comes up with ideas and then he hands that idea off to craftspeople
He's a
and
marketer.
the craftspeople make the idea. And what he does, I don't know him. I will never know him. He could be a lovely human being. I have no fucking idea. But what he does is effectively have enough theory that he's talking 5% above the buyer's head to make them feel like they are in the ivory tower with them.
Nailed it.
And that's I think an important thing. That's the distinction. Is like
Mm.
what we do is we make the thing ourselves. So we have the practical understanding. And then the theory definitely comes into play. The story comes into play for the client. There's no doubt about that.
Mm.
But we are articulating our thoughts and our processes as to how we created this object in practice with the theory, instead of just Jeff Koons being like, well, you see, the reason I'm smarter than you is X.
Okay, Eric, real like lightning round style question. A Windsor chair, handmade, let's say beautiful comb back, sells for $2,000. If you layer theory and the story and what you were going for
It
on top
depends
of
on
it,
the name.
well, it should it sell for more with the theory on top?
I mean,
Does that increase the value over just the practical?
Do we feel like theory only increases value for non-functional objects?
ooh, damn.
Well, functional objects in and of
That's
themselves
a whole
have a
other
value.
fucking episode, Jack.
Yeah,
what
that's
are we
a
doing?
like a chair is where you sit your ass. There's a value there. But if it's a chair where there's a whole theoretical component on top of it, would you pay more?
You would have to tell me if you differentiate theory from history, because I personally do not care about the theory behind functional objects unless I can feel it when I walk up to it, right? I care about how it's going to function, how beautiful I find it, and if it has historical provenance. And historical provenance matters to art objects that are not functional objects also.
Hmm.
But like if somebody were to look at some of the work that I made for my master's thesis show, you can look at it and you can appreciate it as objects of work, as art and design. But the theory is where it really sings. And I kind of hate that in retrospect. Like, if I could do it differently, I'd be like,
Jack.
oh man, I was
Sure,
like,
sure.
I was banging on the door of the ivory tower. Let me in, you know, like definitely wasn't there yet. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answers your question. Like, I think that theory for me is not as important when something has function and historical provenance and it just aesthetically speaks to me. I don't need it to mean something.
I think it can be the icing on the cake. I think it can actually elevate. Like the cake is the piece. It's a cake. That's the important part. But to me, it maybe the theory could, in some cases, maybe not in others, but could elevate the perceived value.
I feel like I don't disagree with either of you, but I feel like this is just basic economic principles at play here. Like, if you created the Windsor chair and you developed the theory, then the theory adds value because you did the work of developing the theory. But the Windsor chair has been around for what, 200 years?
Yeah.
So at this point, the theory is common enough that it's not that like anybody can learn it.
Ooh, so are we saying that now, functionally in woodworking, unless someone designs their own piece, elements of art, principles of design at play, all of the craft skill at play, unless they design it themselves, it does not really have theory to it?
No. I'm not saying that. I think that there is a lot of theory in the craft, but I think the story component of the theory in craft, like, there's no customer who's going to listen to me wax poetic about why I cut the fucking dovetails at X ratio versus another ratio. That doesn't fucking matter. The thing that matters is, are they pretty or not? Do they function or not? But if the object as a whole is a thing that I developed.
Yeah, Eric, your Atlas table, there's a big theoretical component to that.
Sure. There's a big emotional weight to it.
Yeah.
You know? And so then, because of that, then the elements of theory as to why I did a double tapered lamination and had to pre-steam and pre-bend all of the laminates to make sure that they took the bend, then that all comes into play. But if I'm just making a coat rack and then I say to a client, well, you see, I had to double taper these laminations and pre-steam, then they're like, now you're just justifying why it cost too fucking much. Get the fuck out of here.
You know what?
There's no weight to it.
I can't believe I'm saying this because I almost never do this, but like,
agree with me? You can say it.
Yeah. No, no. I very rarely need to amend my answer, or because my mind has been changed so rapidly. But this is one of those rare moments. So congratulations, Eric.
Thank you.
You just made me realize something. for both functional objects, objects of craft, especially woodworking, and also for objects of art, I actually don't give a fuck about the theory if it does not speak to me materially and
Mm,
aesthetically first. Like, and I was thinking about, I'm imagining this. So like if you're listening, maybe close your eyes right now and think about this. You're walking up to a painting in like the National Portrait Gallery or something. And you walk up to this painting and you look at it for 5 seconds and you walk right past it because it didn't mean shit to you, right?
Mm.
But you walk up to the next painting and something about it, something about the angle of a person's eyebrow or the way that the light is cast on their face, it just hits you, right? You walk up closer to it and you start reading that museum card. You start trying to
mm,
delve into the
Mm.
story of the thing. If you didn't care about that theory, you would walk right past it, right? Just like you
Mhm.
did the first one. I think it's the same way for craft objects, for woodworking objects.
Mm.
If I'm, let's say, uh, if I'm in a gallery and I'm looking for nothing in particular, but just something beautiful that speaks to me, I'm going to walk past all the things that just don't speak to me aesthetically, don't speak to me materially. But when I see something that speaks to me aesthetically and materially, like the Atlas table, right? I'm going to want to know everything
mm.
about it, and the person who made it, and why they made it the way they made it, and all of that. So I think that the practice has to be an entry point for the theory. When we see the practice at work and we connect with it, then we go deeper with the theory as viewers, as owners.
Mm.
I agree with that. I think the practice is the application of the theory. It's the culmination of the theory, right? And then it becomes the vehicle for the viewer to understand your theory.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Jack, sorry, with what you just said, the practical made you want to learn more about the theory,
Yeah.
but the practical wouldn't be outstanding if it didn't start with theory. So, I'm not sure if we're
Ooh,
in a little bit of a chicken or an egg,
maybe. Yeah.
right? Because the Atlas table wouldn't be so compelling and so provocative without your head being in the right place to begin.
Hmm.
Like, what am I going for? What's the message? What am I
Mm,
trying to do? So it starts with theory. It manifested into a provocative object that then begged the viewer to learn more. There must be something here that I'm interested. Like, there's got to be something here.
That's so good. It's like a practice sandwich, right? There's theory on both
It
sides
is. It's a
of
practice
it.
sandwich.
Yeah.
practice sandwich. So is
Right.
this makes me wonder, like, I've experienced this, and I feel like you two are both sluttier for theory than I am. So have
Confirmed.
you have you
You
ever
know it.
have you ever seen an object, a painting, a piece of craft, whatever it is, and it hits you, it moves you, right?
I'm so sorry.
you see, motherfuckers.
You're gonna have to say that. Jack and I were making Google eyes as like theory sluts through the camera. You're gonna have to say that. You're gonna have to say that all
This is
So sorry.
this is why I can't host this podcast.
I'm so sorry.
again. Go ahead. I'm
You don't have to
listening.
apologize, Jack.
Say it again. Say it again.
No. So
Theory.
have you ever walked up to a piece and been moved by it and been struck and want to learn more about it? And then when you go to whatever, read the museum card, talk to the artist, and you are profoundly disappointed by the lack of theory.
Usually.
Oh
right?
my god.
Right?
Yes.
More
And
times
now I want to separate the theory from charisma because those could be different things. Right?
Mhm.
They,
What do you
they
mean
could
from
have good,
charisma?
well, they could have good theory and then just not articulate it.
Yeah, a boring
And so
orator.
yeah,
Mhm.
and you're just kind of disappointed by that. But the idea of the thing could stand on its own. But sometimes there's just like, I don't know, it's just the table I made. Like it just
Yeah.
worked. And you're like, why? And they're like, I don't know. Like it just works.
That's happened
That disappoints me for sure.
That's hugely disappointing.
Yeah, and
many
I think
times.
I think the important thing to remember about theory, whether it's in art, whether it's in craft, is that sometimes people are not going to give a fuck about it. And you have to be okay with that because people have their own interpretations of things, their own ideas about what happens. So when I was 12 years old, I got into a shit ton of trouble because I stayed at the Hunter Museum of American Art in Chattanooga, Tennessee after it closed. I didn't mean to. It was
You
an
went full night
accident.
at the museum?
I wish, man. That movie wasn't out yet, but yeah. No. Luckily, they came and found me, and I live close by. And they got me home.
Jack, you're a museum slut.
I am a museum slut. That's been confirmed for years. But here's why, and it was a monumental example of the disappointment of theory. I became so entranced as a 12-year-old in a massive painting titled Il Mostro. It was this huge oil and encaustic painting. And to me, as a 12-year-old, standing at the end of like a 15-foot long hallway looking at this thing, in my mind, in my young mind, it's still like 25 feet by, 10 feet. It wasn't quite that big, just in my kid mind. Looking at it, all it is, it's framed. It's like two human eyes framed very, very tightly in a long sort of horizontal portrait format. And all you can see is the eyes. And the way that they had curated it, you saw it singularly hanging on this wall with nothing around it as soon as you came around this corner. So it was like a surprise. You encountered it, and the rest of the room was completely empty. And I did not believe in God as a 12-year-old. But when I turned that corner and I saw that, I felt like I was looking at the face of God. And I stood there and I stared at it for so long. And I didn't realize that my class had left me behind. And it was like closing time. And
oh my God.
I know. And suddenly like all the lights went out and I was like, oh my God, no, and I moved and then like some alarm went off and somebody started yelling. It was very scary. But anyway, so I go up to the painting and I'm like, I have to know who made this, who did this. And the painting titled Il Mostro, the explanation on the museum card, it was a fucking portrait of Napoleon Bonaparte. I wish I had never looked at that fucking card because it ruined the myth, the theory. The theory ruined the practice. It ruined the myth for me.
Wow, Jack.
Man.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't want to know.
I loved Paul's face when you said the eyes of God. Like he had a visceral "I'm a scientist" reaction right there.
I know.
And while she was telling this story, I was Googling Il Mostro Chattanooga. I was like, I gotta see this.
You're gonna be so fucking underwhelmed when you see it because it was seeing it in person, like the scale of it and the solitude.
And the context, like they curated it so cleverly.
Yep, exactly. It just struck you. And then even when you got up close to it before you read the museum card, you could see every little brush of paint. There were like brush hairs, like sable brush hairs stuck in the oil paint. And you could see even the artist's fingerprints in there in a couple of places.
Holy shit.
Oh, it was fucking amazing. And then I read that goddamn museum card. And I wish I'd never done it.
Jack, you were a very insightful 12-year-old. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was pretty okay.
All right, this has been just a phenomenal discussion. As usual, Jack, you always bring it. God damn, Eric.
There's been a real slut sandwich of an episode.
Slut sandwich.
So let's each give our conclusion because they may not be the same. I don't want to conclude for all of us the same thing. So each of us gets like a 1 or 2 sentence conclusion about today's episode. Who would like to go first?
Paul, you go first because you don't have an answer.
For me, and from everything I've lived, the best outcomes are realized with a balance of theory and practice.
That's a good. That feels right. That feels genuine for you.
I would say that it's not a bad thing to embrace theory first. But the second you start to engage with theory, you need to almost set a timer for yourself so that you know when, no matter what, no matter how afraid you're feeling, no matter how anxious you're feeling, that it's fucking time to move into practice. And you can always reassess that theory on the back end. You can have a delicious little theory sandwich. But you have to set yourself a deadline for moving into practice without fear, without anxiety.
And Jack, I understand why you say that. Now, hearing your story, I totally get where you're coming from.
I think if there is one thing that I've learned in my 37 years on this big blue ball, it's that you have to do the work because nobody's going to do the work for you. So theory's great, but nobody's going to put it into practice for you. Just get out there and do the fucking thing.
So good, Eric. That is you. That's authentically Eric Curtis.
Do the fucking thing.
You guys, great episode. Beautiful job, all of you. Wonderful.
Round the horn. Good episode.
Whoop, whoop.
All right.
Whoop,
well,
whoop.
we obviously didn't do a second segment because
we're
at an hour and 25 minutes.
What are we doing in the after show?
So, Jack, you had a question for us about the time machine. Why don't you read your question and tell the listeners what we'll cover in the after show? And by the way, if you want to listen to the after show, all you have to do to see the video feed and get the after show is subscribe to our Patreon, and the link's in the bio.
And
Go
we
ahead,
appreciate
Jack.
And love you guys.
And you can't see my facial expressions if you don't get the video feed. So you obviously...
Or me giving Eric the finger.
So good. So the after show will include whispers of my midlife crisis, just for anyone who's interested. So I sent this message to Paul and Eric the other day. I said, guys, random question. Let's pretend for a moment that you have a time machine. You can go back in time to the moment you first started really pursuing woodworking as more than a hobby, but you still have all the knowledge of the industry in the world that you do today, right now. What would your future-informed goals and priorities and desires for your professional life be, and why? And would you do anything differently so that you might have ended up in a different professional situation than you are right now? I cannot wait to hear the answers to this. And guys,
Jack.
I gotta tell you, I'm banking on it solving my existential crisis. So
Well,
no pressure.
you might want to bank on something else, girl.
I got no more bank to go around. It's on you guys.
Jack, with that, excellent. Thank you for joining us for this discussion.
Thanks, Jack.
It was awesome.
Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate you.
Hope you all enjoyed this. And I hope this helps you reflect on your own, especially Jack, with you. What you said is, when I feel hesitant to turn from thinking about something into doing it, what is that telling me about me? That is super.
Yeah.
I'll be thinking about that all week, because I know when I'm stalling, and now I have to figure out what that's really saying about myself. That's excellent. So for all the listeners, I encourage you to think about that, and also think about where on that spectrum of theory to practice you are. If you get in the shop and you just start making something and you spin out and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Perhaps you didn't think it through enough in the beginning. Vice versa. If all you do is sit on your couch thinking about what you should make, why aren't you making it? Great discussion, y'all, and we'll see you in the after show.
Okay, bye.
Bye.